It was a regular Tuesday afternoon at the office, nothing out of the ordinary. I was finishing up some paperwork when I heard a familiar, annoying voice. My colleague, Rick, who I never got along with, sauntered into my office with a smug grin plastered across his face. "So, cuckold," he sneered, leaning casually against my doorframe. "While you were here warming your chair, I saw your unfaithful wife walking into a hotel with some bastard who had a firm grip on her arse." I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. My mind went blank for a second, then filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, disbelief, hurt, everything hit me at once. Rick S. words echoed in my head as I tried to process what he had just said. "You are lying," I managed to choke out, my voice shaking. He chuckled, clearly enjoying the moment. "Believe what you want, but I know what I saw. She was all over him, mate." Without another word, I stormed past him, ignoring his mocking laughter. My mind was racing as I grabbed my car keys and headed for the parking lot. If what Rick said was true, I had to see it for myself. I had to know if my wife Anna was really cheating on me. And if she was, I did make sure she and her lover paid dearly. The drive to the hotel felt like an eternity. Memories of our life together flashed before my eyes: our wedding day, the birth of our children, the happy moments we shared. How could she do this to me? To us? When I arrived at the hotel, I parked a little distance away and walked to the entrance. I felt a mix of fear and anger bubbling inside me. Fear that Rick was right, and anger at the possibility of Anna's betrayal. I headed to the front desk, trying to appear calm. "Excuse me?" I said to the receptionist. "I am looking for my wife. She checked in earlier. Her name is Anna." The receptionist gave me a sympathetic look, clearly sensing something was wrong. "I am sorry, sir, but I can give out that information." I clenched my fists, struggling to maintain my composure. "Please, I just need to know if she is here. It is an emergency." After a moment of hesitation, she nodded. "All right, but please don't to cause any trouble." She checked the register and then looked back at me. "She guess in room 213. I thanked her and made my way to the elevators, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached room 213, I heard muffled voices inside. One of them was Anna S. My blood boiled as I reached for the door handle, but it was locked. Taking a deep breath, I knocked. The voices stopped abruptly, and after a few seconds, the door opened slightly. A man peeked out, his expression turning from curiosity to alarm when he saw me. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, pushing the door open. The man stepped back, raising his hands defensively. "Hey, calm down, mate." That ass when I saw Anna sitting on the bed, her face pale and eyes wide with shock. "Jack, what are you doing here?" she stammered. "I should be asking you that." I spat. "What the hell is going on?" The man tried to step between us, but I shoved him aside. "Get out of my way." Anna stood up, her voice trembling. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain," I laughed bitterly. "Explain how you're cheating on me?" "It's not what you think," she said, but her eyes betrayed her guilt. "Not what I think," I shouted. "Then what is it, Anna? Because it sure looks like you were screwing this guy behind my back." Her lover, trying to play the hero, stepped forward again. "Look, man, let's just calm down." I turned on him, my anger reaching a boiling point. "Shut up! This is between me and my wife." Anna tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Jack, please. Let's talk about this." "Talk?" I said, my voice breaking. "There's nothing to talk about, Anna. You've been lying to me, betraying me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. My world was crumbling around me, and all I could think about was revenge. I had to make them both pay for this. "I'm not going to let you get away with this," I said, my voice cold. "I'll make sure you regret ever betraying me, Anna." I turned and left the room, slamming the door behind me. As I walked away, I felt a dark resolve settling over me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Driving back from the hotel, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. I replayed the scene in my head over and over again: Anna's guilty face, the smug look on her lover's face. My rage simmered just below the surface, but I needed to keep it together. If I was going to get my revenge, I needed a plan. When I got home, Anna was there, waiting for me in the living room. She looked like she had been crying, but I felt no sympathy. Her betrayal had cut too deep. "Jack, we need to talk," she began, her voice trembling. I ignored her and walked past, heading to the kitchen to pour myself a drink. I needed something to steady my nerves. As I took a long swig of whiskey, Anna followed me, wringing her hands. "Please, Jack, let me explain," she pleaded. I slammed the glass down on the counter, making her jump. "Explain what, Anna? That you've been screwing some random guy behind my back? That you've been lying to me every day?" She burst into tears, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered Rick S.'s words, the image of her with that man, and my anger flared again. "It wasn't like that," she sobbed. "It just happened, and I didn't know how to tell you." "Didn't know how to tell me?" I echoed, incredulous. "You didn't even try, Anna. You just kept lying and sneaking around." She sank to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never meant to hurt you." Her tears did nothing to soften my heart. "Well, you did, and now you're going to pay for it." I left her there and went to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. I needed to think. Anna S.'s betrayal was a knife in my back, but I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just lash out in anger. I needed to hit where it would hurt the most. Lying in bed, I started to hatch my plan. I knew Anna was lying about a lot more than just her affair. She had been secretive for months, and I was determined to uncover everything. I decided to start with her phone. She always kept it close, but now I had a reason to take a closer look. The next morning, Anna was still a mess. She had barely slept, and it showed. I pretended to be calm, to give her a false sense of security. "I need some time to process this," I told her, "but I want to work things out." Her eyes lit up with hope, and I almost felt guilty for deceiving her. But I pushed that feeling down. This was war, and in war there were no rules. That evening, when she finally fell asleep, I quietly took her phone from her nightstand and slipped out of the room. In the dim light of the living room, I started going through her messages and emails. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There were countless messages between Anna and her lover, who I now knew was named Mike. They had been seeing each other for months, meeting up in secret whenever they could. The messages were sickeningly sweet, filled with declarations of love and promises to be together. I also found messages between Anna and someone named Laura. It quickly became clear that Laura was covering for Anna, making excuses whenever Anna needed to meet Mike. My anger deepened. This was a full-blown conspiracy. The next day at work, I confided in my friend James. He was the only one I trusted, and I needed his help. James was a tech whiz, and I knew he could dig deeper into Anna S.'s digital life. "Man, this is messed up," James said after I explained everything. "But don't worry, I've got your back." That evening, I met James at his place. We set up a plan to monitor Anna S.'s phone and laptop without her knowing. If there was more to uncover, we would find it. Over the next few days, I played the role of the forgiving husband, while secretly gathering evidence. James kept me updated on everything he found. It was worse than I had imagined. Anna had been lying about more than just her affair. She had drained our savings, transferred money to Mike, and even taken out loans in my name. The final straw came when James found out that Mike had a criminal record. He had been arrested for fraud and assault. Anna had gotten herself involved with a dangerous man, and I was determined to expose them both. But I wasn't going to just expose them. I was going to destroy them. Every lie, every betrayal would be brought to light, and they would regret ever crossing me. I spent the next few days preparing, gathering all the evidence I needed. I filed a report with the police about the fraudulent loans, and I contacted a lawyer to discuss my options for divorce. I wanted to make sure Anna wouldn't get a penny from me. Then, I set up a meeting with Rick. As much as I hated him, he was still my colleague, and I needed his help to take Mike down. "So you were right," I said when we met at a bar. "Anna S. been cheating on me, but it's worse than that." Rick leaned in, intrigued. "Oh yeah, how so?" I told him everything about Mike S.'s criminal record, the money Anna had stolen, the loans. Rick S.'s eyes widened, and he whistled low. "Damn, man, that is some serious shit." "I need your help," I said. "You know people. I want to make sure Mike pays for what he's done." Rick nodded slowly. "All right, I'll see what I can do." As I walked out of the bar, I felt a grim satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place. Anna and Mike had no idea what was coming, but they were about to find out just how ruthless I could be. With Rick on board and James feeding me updates from Anna S. devices, my plan was coming together. But the real challenge was to make Anna and Mike S. world crumble in a way they'd never expect. The goal was not just to expose them, but to leave them with nothing. I began by consolidating all the evidence. James had compiled a detailed report on the fraudulent activities, complete with screenshots of transactions, messages, and even some photos of Anna and Mike together. I was ready to go nuclear, but I needed to bide my time and strike at the perfect moment. One evening, pretending to be the ever-loving husband, I suggested to Anna that we take a weekend trip to reconnect. She was hesitant at first, but the guilt and fear of losing everything made her agree. The idea was to create a scenario where Anna felt secure and unsuspecting. "Where do you want to go?" she asked, her eyes red from crying. "How about that cabin in the mountains?" I suggested, forcing a smile. "Just the two of us, away from everything." She nodded, and I could see a flicker of hope in her eyes. Little did she know this trip would be the beginning of her end. Meanwhile, Rick had come through. He managed to dig up more dirt on Mike. It turned out Mike was not only a fraudster, but also involved in some shady dealings with a local gang. This information was gold. It would make sure Mike wouldn't be able to retaliate without risking his own neck. On Friday morning, Anna and I packed up and headed to the cabin. The drive was long, and I used the time to mentally prepare myself. Anna tried to make small talk, but I kept my responses short, letting the silence speak volumes. When we arrived, the cabin was just as I remembered, cozy, secluded, and perfect for what I had in mind. We spent the day hiking and pretending everything was fine. Anna seemed relieved, perhaps thinking that this trip was a turning point. I played along, knowing the storm was about to break. That night, while Anna slept, I slipped out of bed and into the living room. I made a few calls, first to James, to check on the progress of monitoring Anna S. and Mike S. devices, then to Rick, to ensure everything was ready on his end. Finally, I called my lawyer to make sure all legal actions were prepared for the fallout. The next morning, I suggested we have a lazy day at the cabin. "Let's just relax, maybe make a nice breakfast together," I said, trying to sound as genuine as possible. Anna smiled, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. But I quickly reminded myself of the betrayal, the lies, and the deceit. This was justice. As we sat down for breakfast, I decided to start the conversation that would set everything in motion. "Anna, we need to talk," I said, putting down my coffee cup. She looked up, her face filled with dread. "What is it, Jack?" "I have been thinking a lot about us," I began, choosing my words carefully. "I want to believe we can work through this, but I need you to be completely honest with me." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I am, Jack, I swear." "Are you?" I challenged, pulling out my phone and opening the messages I had gathered. "Because it doesn't seem like it." Her face turned pale as she saw the evidence. I can explain," she stammered. "Explain," I repeated, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been funneling our money to Mike, how you've taken out loans in my name, how you've been lying to my face every single day." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I was scared, Jack. He said he needed the money. He said he loved me. Did he?" I said coldly. "Or was he just using you?" Her silence was all the answer I needed. "I trusted you, Anna. I loved you. And you threw it all away for some low-life criminal." "Please, Jack," she begged. "We can fix this. I'll do anything." "Anything?" I echoed. "You will do anything?" "Yes," she whispered. "Then you'll sign these," I said, pulling out the divorce papers and a pen. "Sign these and maybe, just maybe, I'll consider not pressing charges." Her eyes widened in horror as she looked at the papers. "Divorce?" "Jack, no, please. This is the only way," I said firmly. "Sign them and I won't go to the police." She hesitated, her hand shaking as she took the pen. I watched as she slowly signed her name, tears streaming down her face. Once she was done, I took the papers and stood up. "Now pack your things," I said. "We were leaving." She looked confused. "Leaving? Where are we going?" "You're going back to the city," I replied. "I have business to take care of." As we drove back, Anna was silent, her face a mask of despair. I dropped her off at our house and watched as she walked inside, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Then I headed to Rick S. place. He had set up a meeting with one of his contacts in law enforcement, someone who could make sure Mike S. criminal activities were exposed and that he faced the consequences. "Everything S. ready," Rick said as I arrived. "You sure about this?" I nodded. Absolutely. The next few days were a whirlwind. Rick S. contact came through, and the police raided Mike S. place, finding enough evidence to arrest him. Anna was served with the divorce papers, and I made sure everyone knew about her betrayal. Friends, family, colleagues, they all heard the truth. Anna tried to reach out to me, to apologize, to beg for another chance, but I was done. The life we had was over, and I had no intention of looking back. In the end, Anna and Mike got what they deserved. She lost everything: her home, her reputation, her security. And Mike? He was facing serious jail time. As for me, I felt a strange sense of peace. The revenge had been sweet, but it was time to move on. I had a life to rebuild, and I was ready to start anew, free from the chains of betrayal. And so, I walked away from the wreckage of my past, leaving Anna and her lies behind. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I would never let anyone hurt me like that again. With Anna served the divorce papers and Mike arrested, the immediate chaos began to subside. But the aftermath of their betrayal left a tangled mess in its wake. I was determined to pick up the pieces and move forward, but there were still loose ends that needed to be tied up. The first challenge was facing our mutual friends and family. When word got out about the affair, people started choosing sides. Some friends were supportive, offering sympathy and help, while others tried to stay neutral, unsure of how to navigate the drama. My parents were devastated. They had always loved Anna like a daughter, and this betrayal cut them deeply. "How could she do this to you, Jack?" my mother asked, tears in her eyes. "I don't know, Mom," I said, feeling the weight of their disappointment. "But I am moving on. I have to." Work became a battlefield. Rick, surprisingly, was more helpful than I had anticipated. He kept his distance from the drama, but made sure to pass along any useful information he could gather about Anna S. and Mike S. associates. But the office atmosphere was tense. Whispers and gossip followed me everywhere. "Hey, Jack, you holding up okay?" James asked one morning as we grabbed coffee. "I am trying," I said, sighing. "It is just, everything is such a mess." James patted my shoulder. "You all get through this, man. You are stronger than you think." I appreciated his support, but I knew there was still more to be done. I had to ensure that Anna couldn't come after me for anything else, and that she wouldn't try to sabotage my life any further. I needed to get our financials in order and protect my assets. Meeting with my lawyer, we went over every detail. "You're in a good position, Jack," he said. "With the evidence of her affair and the fraudulent activities, you have a strong case. She wanted to be able to claim much." "That is good to hear," I replied, feeling a bit of relief. "I just want this to be over." We worked through the details of the divorce, ensuring that everything was in place. Anna tried to contest the divorce initially, but her position was weak. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she eventually had no choice but to accept the terms. One evening, as I was going through some old photos, Anna called. I debated whether to answer, but decided to see what she had to say. "Jack, please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I just want to talk." "What is there to talk about, Anna?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I know I have said it before, but I mean it. I ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it." "You can fix this," I said firmly. "We are done. I am moving on, and you should too." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, she spoke again. "I understand. I'm so sorry, Jack, for everything." I hung up, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Her apologies meant nothing to me now. The damage was done, and there was no going back. As the weeks passed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, spent more time with friends who had stood by me, and even started going to the gym again. James and I began hanging out more, and his support helped me stay grounded. One day, Rick pulled me aside at work. "Hey, Jack, I've got something you might want to see," he said, handing me a folder. I opened it to find more dirt on Mike. Apparently, he had been involved in even shadier dealings than we initially thought. There were connections to organized crime, money laundering, and more. This information could bury him even deeper. "Thanks, Rick," I said. Genuinely appreciative. This is a lot. "No problem," he replied. "Just thought you should know what kind of guy we're dealing with." Armed with this new information, I contacted the authorities again. They were already building a strong case against Mike, but this added more fuel to the fire. It was satisfying to know that he would be facing the full consequences of his actions. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the divorce was finalized. Anna was left with nothing but the regret of her actions, and Mike was looking at a long time behind bars. I, on the other hand, was slowly starting to find a sense of peace. I decided to take a vacation, to clear my head and start fresh. I booked a trip to a quiet beach town, a place where I could relax and reflect. The ocean had always been a place of solace for me, and I needed that now more than ever. On the first morning of my trip, I walked along the shore, feeling the cool breeze and listening to the waves crash against the rocks. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. As I sat on the sand, watching the sun rise, I realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter. The betrayal and heartbreak were behind me, and I was ready to move forward. The future was uncertain, but I knew I could face it with strength and resilience. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would never let anyone take advantage of me again. I would rebuild my life on my terms, and I would find happiness and peace once more. The road ahead was long, but I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. Returning from my beach trip, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ocean had done its job. I was calmer, clearer, and ready to start anew. I had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but I was determined to face them head on. Work became my sanctuary. Rick, surprisingly, turned into a reliable ally. The past animosity between us seemed trivial now. We'd both been through our share of hardship, and it created an unexpected bond. "How was the beach?" Rick asked one morning, genuinely curious. "It was good. Exactly what I needed," I replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. "Glad to hear it," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "By the way, some of us are heading out for drinks after work. You in?" I hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Yeah, I am in." That evening, we hit a local bar. It felt good to be out, laughing and chatting without the weight of my recent past hanging over me. Rick, James, and a few others kept the conversation light, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. As the night wore on, Rick pulled me aside. "You know, Jack, you're handling this whole mess pretty well." I shrugged, taking a sip of my drink. "What choice do I have?" "True," he said, nodding. "But still, you've shown a lot of strength. I respect that." "Thanks, Rick," I said, appreciating his words. "It hasn't been easy, but I'm trying. That's all any of us can do," he replied, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. As the weeks passed, I threw myself into work and personal projects. I started running again, something I hadn't done in years. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, and I found solace in the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement. One Saturday morning, as I was running through the park, I noticed a familiar face. It was Laura, Anna S. friend who had been covering for her. She spotted me too and jogged over, looking apprehensive. "Jack," she began, slightly out of breath. "I've been meaning to talk to you." I stopped, taking a deep breath. "What do you want, Laura?" "I am so sorry," she said, her eyes pleading. "I should never have gotten involved in Anna S. mess. I feel terrible about it." "You should," I replied coldly. "You helped her lie to me. You are just as guilty." "I know," she said, tears welling up, "but I want to make it right. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." I considered her offer. Part of me wanted to tell her to get lost, but another part saw an opportunity. "Fine," I said. If you really want to make it right, you can start by telling me everything you know about Mike and Anna S. relationship. Every detail. She nodded vigorously. Of course, anything you need. We sat down on a bench, and Laura began to spill everything. She told me about the times she had covered for Anna, the lies they had concocted, and the things she knew about Mike. It was clear she was genuinely remorseful, and her information filled in some gaps I hadn't been able to piece together before. Thank you, I said when she finished. This helps. I am really sorry, Jack, she repeated. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. We'll see, I replied, standing up to continue my run. Take care, Laura. With the new information from Laura, I felt even more resolved to move forward. The divorce had been finalized, and Anna was out of my life. Mike was facing jail time, and I had severed ties with anyone who had been complicit in their betrayal. One evening, James invited me over for dinner. He had been a constant support, and I was grateful for his friendship. As we sat on his patio, watching the sunset, he handed me a beer. So, what is next for you? He asked, taking a sip from his own bottle. I don't know, I admitted, but I am ready for whatever comes. You ever think about dating again? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I laughed, shaking my head. Not anytime soon. I need to focus on myself for a while. Fair enough, he said, nodding. But when you are ready, just know that not all relationships end in disaster. There are good people out there. I'll keep that in mind, I replied, smiling. Thanks, James, for everything. Anytime, buddy, he said, clinking his bottle against mine. As the night wore on, we talked about the future, about possibilities and dreams. It felt good to look ahead, to imagine a life not defined by betrayal but by new opportunities. The next few months were a time of healing and growth. I focused on my career, pushing myself to achieve new goals. I reconnected with old friends, spent time with family, and continued to take care of myself both physically and mentally. One day, as I was walking to my car after work, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to see a woman I didn't recognize, but there was something familiar about her. Hi, Jack, she said, smiling. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Emma. We went to college together. Emma, I said, the memory clicking into place. Of course I remember. How have you been? I've been good, she replied. I heard about what happened with Anna. I'm really sorry. Thanks, I said, appreciating her kindness. It's been a rough ride, but I'm getting through it. We chatted for a while, catching up on life since college. Emma was warm, kind, and easy to talk to. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. Listen, she said as we were about to part ways. If you are ever up for it, maybe we could grab a coffee sometime? Just as friends, of course. That sounds nice, I replied, genuinely interested. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers and said our goodbyes. As I drove home, I couldn't help but smile. It was just a coffee, but it felt like the first step toward a brighter future. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on how far I had come. The betrayal that had once consumed me was now just a part of my past. I had taken control of my life, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but I was no longer afraid. I had found my strength, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them head on. With new beginnings on the horizon, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The next few weeks felt like a breath of fresh air. I was gradually rebuilding my life piece by piece. Emma and I kept in touch, and we finally set a date for coffee. It was a simple, casual meeting, but it felt like a significant step forward. We met at a cozy cafe downtown. I arrived a bit early, nerves tingling with anticipation. I hadn't been on a date, or anything resembling one, since everything had fallen apart. Emma walked in, her smile brightening the room, and I felt an unexpected wave of relief. Jack, she greeted, giving me a friendly hug. It's so good to see you. Likewise, I replied, genuinely happy to see her. We ordered our drinks and found a quiet corner to sit. The conversation flowed effortlessly, just like it had back in college. We reminisced about old times, shared stories about our lives since, and laughed a lot. It felt natural, comfortable. So, what have you been up to? she asked, stirring her coffee. I told her about my work, my new hobbies, and the steps I'd taken to rebuild my life. I mentioned the betrayal briefly, not wanting to dwell on it, and she listened with understanding. I'm glad you're moving forward, she said sincerely. You deserve happiness, Jack. Thanks, Emma, I replied. I appreciate that. As the afternoon turned into evening, we decided to take a walk by the river. The city lights reflected off the water, creating a serene atmosphere. We walked side by side, talking about everything and nothing. It felt like a fresh start, a new beginning. You know, Emma said, glancing at me, I'm really glad we reconnected. I've missed our conversations. Me too, I admitted. It's nice to have a friend like you. She smiled, and we continued our walk, enjoying the peacefulness of the moment. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I met up regularly. We went for hikes, explored new restaurants, and even attended a few local events. Each meeting felt like a step towards healing, a reminder that life could be good again. One evening, as we were sitting on a bench overlooking the city, Emma turned to me with a serious expression. Jack, I need to ask you something, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Sure, I replied, curious. Are you ready to move on? I mean, really ready? She asked, searching my eyes for an answer. I took a deep breath, considering her question. I think so, Emma. It's been a tough journey, but I feel like I am finally in a good place. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. Good, because I don't want to be a rebound or a distraction. I want to be here for you, as a friend, or maybe something more if you are ready. Her honesty touched me, and I felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you for being so patient, Emma. I really appreciate it. She smiled, and we continued our conversation, the city lights twinkling around us. As time went on, my feelings for Emma grew stronger. We spent more time together, and our bond deepened. She was a constant source of support, always there when I needed her. I realized that I was not only ready to move on, but also open to the possibility of a new relationship. One evening, after a particularly fun day spent exploring a nearby town, we found ourselves back at my place. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing in the background, when Emma leaned in closer. Jack, she said softly, I think I am falling for you. Her words took me by surprise, but in the best way possible. I felt a warmth spread through me, a sense of rightness. I think I'm falling for you too, Emma, I replied, my heart pounding. She smiled, and we shared our first kiss. It was gentle, sweet, and full of promise. From that moment on, our relationship blossomed. We took things slow, savoring each moment and building a strong foundation. Emma's presence in my life was a balm to my wounds, and I found myself happier than I had been in a long time. Of course, there were still challenges. The fallout from Anna's betrayal lingered, and I had to deal with the final stages of the divorce and the financial mess she had left behind. But with Emma by my side, I felt capable of handling anything. One day, as I was sorting through some old paperwork, I found a letter from Anna. It was an apology, filled with regret and remorse. She begged for forgiveness, hoping for some form of reconciliation. I read the letter carefully, taking in her words. But as I finished, I realized that I had already moved past the point of needing her apology. Forgiveness wasn't about absolving her of her actions, it was about freeing myself from the weight of her betrayal. I wrote a brief response, acknowledging her apology, but making it clear that I had moved on and had no interest in reopening that chapter of my life. I wished her well and left it at that. With that final act, I felt a sense of closure. The past was behind me, and the future was bright. As Emma and I continued to grow closer, we started making plans for the future. We talked about traveling, exploring new places together, and maybe even starting a family someday. It was exciting and filled with possibilities. One weekend, we decided to take a trip back to the beach, where I had found my initial sense of peace. Walking along the shore with Emma, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had thrown me some harsh lessons, but it had also given me the strength to overcome them. Jack, Emma said, squeezing my hand, I am so glad we found each other again. Me too, I replied, smiling at her. Me too. As we stood there, watching the waves crash against the shore. I knew that I was finally ready to embrace the future. The past was a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. With Emma by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next, confident in the knowledge that I had found not only love, but also a true partner. And so, as the sun set on the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of hope and happiness. The road ahead was still unknown, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the journey. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, life with Emma felt like a dream. We were growing closer with each passing day, and I was grateful for her unwavering support. However, just when I thought I had left the past behind, life threw another curveball my way. One evening, as Emma and I were preparing dinner together, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I glanced at the screen and felt a chill run down my spine. It was Anna. I hadn't spoken to her since I sent my final response to her apology letter. "Are you going to answer that?" Emma asked, noticing the tension in my posture. I hesitated for a moment before picking up the phone. "Hello?" "Jack, it's Anna," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. It's important." "What do you want, Anna?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It is about Mike," she said, and I could hear the fear in her voice. "He's out of jail." My heart skipped a beat. "What? How?" "He got out on a technicality. Something about improper handling of evidence," she explained, her voice cracking. "I'm scared, Jack. He's been calling me, threatening me." I took a deep breath, trying to process the information. "And what do you want me to do about it, Anna?" "Please, Jack, I don't know who else to turn to," she pleaded. "I know I hurt you, but I'm really scared." I looked at Emma, who was watching me with concern. "I'll think about it, Anna," I said finally, "but I can promise anything." "Thank you, Jack," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I appreciate it." I ended the call and turned to Emma, who was waiting for an explanation. "That was Anna," I said, running a hand through my hair. "Mike S. out of jail, and he S. been threatening her." Emma S. eyes widened. "That S. serious, Jack. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to help her, but the other part remembers what she did to you." Emma finished, nodding and understanding. "It's a tough situation." We sat down to dinner, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't shake the feeling that this situation with Mike was far from over. I needed to do something, but I wasn't sure what. The next day at work, I confided in Rick. He had connections and might have some advice on how to handle the situation. "Mike S. out of jail?" Rick said, his expression darkening. "That is bad news, Jack." "Tell me about it," I replied. Anna S. scared, and she S. turned to me for help. Rick leaned back in his chair, thinking. "You need to be careful. Mike is a dangerous guy, but I know a few people who might be able to keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't cause any trouble." "Thanks, Rick," I said, feeling a bit of relief. "I appreciate it." Rick made some calls, and by the end of the day, he had arranged for a couple of his contacts to keep tabs on Mike. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was something. That evening, I called Anna to let her know what I had arranged. She was grateful, but I could still hear the fear in her voice. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm really grateful. Just be careful, Anna," I said, "and let me know if anything happens." The following weeks were tense. Mike was spotted around town a few times, but he didn't make any direct moves. I stayed in touch with Anna, more out of a sense of responsibility than anything else. Emma was supportive, but I could tell she was worried too. One night, as Emma and I were getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Anna. "Anna, Jack, he is here, outside my house. I am scared." "Emma, I have to go," I said, showing her the message. She nodded, worry etched on her face. "Be careful, Jack." I drove to Anna S. house, my heart pounding. When I arrived, I saw Mike standing outside looking menacing. I got out of the car, trying to keep my cool. "Mike, leave her alone," I said, my voice firm. He turned to face me, a sneer on his lips. "Look who it is, the knight in shining armor. Just go, Mike," I said. "You've done enough damage." He took a step toward me, his expression darkening. "Or what? You think you can scare me off?" I stood my ground, my fists clenched. "I'm not afraid of you, Mike. Just leave Anna alone." He laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "You don't know what you're getting into, Jack." Before I could respond, I heard a siren in the distance. Rick's contacts had called the police. Mike glared at me one last time before turning and walking away, disappearing into the night. The police arrived shortly after, taking my statement and reassuring Anna that they would keep an eye on the situation. I stayed with her until they left, making sure she was okay. "Thank you, Jack," Anna said, her voice shaky. "I don't know what I would have done without you. Just stay safe, Anna," I replied, "and call me if anything else happens." I drove home, my mind racing. This situation with Mike was far from over, but at least for now Anna was safe. Emma was waiting for me when I got home, her worry turning to relief when she saw me. "Are you okay?" she asked, pulling me into a hug. "Yeah," I said, holding her close. "Mike's gone for now, but I have a feeling this isn't the last we've seen of him." "We'll deal with it together," Emma said, her voice steady. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As I lay in bed that night, holding Emma close, I realized that despite the challenges, I was no longer facing them alone. With Emma by my side and the support of friends like Rick and James, I knew I could handle whatever came next. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face it head-on with strength, resilience, and the knowledge that I wasn't alone. The weeks following Mike's return were tense. He kept his distance, but his presence loomed over us like a dark cloud. Anna was terrified, and though I still harbored anger toward her, I couldn't ignore her pleas for help. I kept in close contact with Rick and his associates, making sure we were always one step ahead. One Friday evening, Emma and I decided to have a quiet night in. We cooked dinner together and settled on the couch with a movie. For a few hours, it felt like we could forget about the turmoil surrounding us. But just as the movie ended, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rick. "Rick, Jack, we need to talk. Now." I called him immediately, my heart pounding. "Rick, what is going on?" "Mike's has been spotted near your place," Rick said, his voice urgent. "I think he's planning something. We need to be ready." I glanced at Emma, who was watching me with concern. "All right, I'll keep an eye out. Thanks for the heads up. Stay safe, Jack," Rick said before hanging up. I turned to Emma, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mike's been seen around here. We need to be careful." Her face paled, but she nodded resolutely. "What do we do?" "We stay inside and keep the doors locked," I said, checking the locks on the windows and doors. "I'll call the police and let them know." As I made the call, Emma sat on the couch, her phone in hand, ready to dial 911 if needed. The minutes ticked by agonizingly slowly, each one filled with tension. I kept peering out the windows, looking for any sign of movement. About an hour later, we heard a noise outside. It was faint, but unmistakable. Someone was trying to get in. I motioned for Emma to stay put as I crept toward the front door, grabbing a baseball bat I kept for emergencies. The door rattled as someone jiggled the handle. My heart raced, and I tightened my grip on the bat. Just as I was about to call out, the door burst open, and there stood Mike, a menacing grin on his face. "Well, well, well," he sneered. "Look who's playing house." "Get out, Mike," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "The police are on their way." He laughed, stepping inside. "I am not afraid of the police, Jack. I came here to finish what I started." Before I could react, he lunged at me. We struggled, the bat falling from my grasp as we grappled. Mike was strong, but adrenaline fueled my fight. I managed to push him back, but he recovered quickly, swinging a punch that caught me on the jaw. I staggered, but Emma was there, hitting Mike over the head with a lamp. He turned, snarling, and I took the opportunity to tackle him to the ground. We fought, rolling across the floor, each of us trying to gain the upper hand. Just as Mike pinned me down, I heard sirens in the distance. He hesitated, glancing toward the door, and I used that moment to land a solid punch, knocking him off me. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing the bat again. "Stay down, Mike," I warned, my voice shaking with anger and fear. The police burst in moments later, guns drawn. They quickly subdued Mike, cuffing him and dragging him to his feet. "You are done, Mike," one of the officers said. "You are going back to jail." As they led him away, he glared at me. "This isn't over, Jack." I watched them take him away, my heart still racing. Emma rushed to my side, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. I am fine, I said, pulling her into a hug. It's over. He is gone. The police took our statements and reassured us that Mike would be facing serious charges. As they left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The immediate threat was gone, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Emma and I sat on the couch, holding each other tightly. The adrenaline slowly faded, leaving us both exhausted but relieved. "Thank you for saving me," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "We saved each other," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "And we'll keep doing it, no matter what." In the days that followed, we took steps to ensure our safety. We installed a security system, changed the locks, and made sure we were always vigilant. Rick's contacts continued to keep an eye on things, but the danger felt distant now, not looming over us like before. Anna called to thank me for helping her, but I kept the conversation brief. I wished her well, but made it clear that our lives were on separate paths now. She understood, and I hoped she would find a way to rebuild her own life. With Mike finally out of the picture, Emma and I focused on moving forward. Our bond grew stronger as we navigated the challenges together. We planned trips, explored new hobbies, and spent time with friends and family. Life was starting to feel normal again. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to me, her eyes filled with love. "You know, Jack, I'm really proud of you," she said. "You've been through so much, but you've come out stronger." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, squeezing her hand. "You have been my rock through all of this." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "And you've been mine. We are a team, Jack. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past had been filled with pain and betrayal, but the future was bright. With Emma by my side, I knew I could handle anything. We sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, ready to embrace whatever came next. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led me to a place of love and strength. And as we watched the stars come out, I knew that the best was yet to come.